everybody, Mike Iaconelli here. Welcome to a brand new In the Shop, and I've got a really good one for you today. And in today's shop, we're going to be talking about a technique, a way of fishing that has gained popularity and then sort of went away. But I'm here to tell you this technique is a killer. And in today's shop video, we're going to be talking all about the Swing Head Jig, aka articulated jig, aka the biffle bug. This technique really gained some popularity with an angler named Tommy Biffle about 8-9 years ago. And he was able to utilize this bait and catch fish when other guys could not catch them. It really started to peak. And then the last few years, because of the advent of other techniques, other baits, this system's been a little quiet. But I am here to tell you that this Swing Head Jig, the swinging jig, is just as good now as it was in the past. Here's the other thing about this kind of jig that is really important. The one is action. And we're going to be able to get a unique action with this style jig head that we can't get with other rigging methods, okay? So Texas rigging, Carolina rigging, drop shotting, even a Tokyo rig, there's an action that's created with the movement of this articulated hook that you can't get with any of those other rigging styles. Let's talk about the conditions, when and where, and then let's get into the meat of what an articulated jig is and how to fish it, okay? All right, the first thing is when and where. Man, the great thing about this system is that it's really effective all 4 months, all 4 seasons out of the year. So winter, spring, summer, fall, this is a great bait. Out of all of those seasons, in my opinion, this bait is at its best when the fish are deeper, okay? So really now, if you're watching this video and we're somewhere in the mid-summer to late summer, this is a great technique, right? Fish are generally a little deeper, generally off the bank. So summer is a great time to fish the swing head. The other time when they get a little deeper and off the bank is late fall, early winter. Great technique, okay? So seasonality, all 4 seasons, but especially when the fish get off the bank a little bit, this is a killer. Water clarity, dude, any water clarity from dirty dirt to stained to regular clear to ultra clear, I've caught them on this bait. And I think the reason it's so good in all the different water clarities is it has a lot of attributes that make it effective in those different water clarities, right? In clear water, it's subtle enough that they want to eat it. In dirty water, it's making enough noise and it's got enough sound that they're going to find it. And of course, in stained water, it's phenomenal. So all water clarities, all water temperatures, all seasons, this thing's pretty versatile. Let's get into why this articulated jig is so good. And, you know, there's a lot of different ones on the market. The one that I really like is the VMC swinging rugby head. And the reason I like this particular jig head is the shape of the head. And the VMC swinging rugby uses a rugby ball shaped head. So if you think about a rugby ball, it's not a football, it's not super pointy, but it's also not round. It's not a regular ball head. It falls somewhere in the middle. And that rugby-shaped head, it's got a little flat spot on the bottom, really goes through and over cover really well, okay? The other great thing about the VMC swinging rugby head is it's available in different hook styles. And we can get it with an EWG, an extra wide gap hook, and that's great for those fatter plastics. More on that in a second. And it's also available in a straight shank style hook, which is great for those thinner or more streamlined style plastics. Okay? So, that articulated head has something special that separates it from a shaky head, a regular skirted jig, a ball head, a swim bait head, and that is that the hook is on a joint. That hook free swings, look at this, 360 degrees, left, right, up, down. It has full articulated movement away from that head. And that is the key to this swinging jig, right? This swing jig, this biffle bug, this whatever you want to call it, is the fact that it's going to give this bait, we're going to talk about it in a second, it's going to give the plastic you thread on here way more fluidity of movement. And I like to say that it gives whatever plastic you choose a dual action, okay? So hear me out on this one, guys. Because that hook is articulated, any plastic you put on here is now going to have a more fluid left to right movement. Almost like a waving, a left-right wave under the water. Then you add to that the regular action of whatever plastic you put on there, right? So in this case, I'm going to talk about it in a second. We've got a 4-inch Berkley Power Bait Pit Boss. So I have a left-right, and then I have the arms of that Pit Boss going up and down. Dual action, left-right, and then whatever that movement of that tail, that plastic is, in this case, up and down. Okay? So articulated head, a swinging jig head, a swinging rugby head, gives it better action, more natural movement, more fluidity, okay? And last but not least, I like the fact that once you get the bite and set the hook, they don't have direct leverage to throw the hook, right? Think about a Texas rig where it's pinned and it's a direct connection. Think about a football jig. It's all one piece. When that fish is fighting and tries to throw it, it's one connection. But the articulated head gives it a little bit more flexibility, and I tend to land more fish, okay? All right, let's get into the plastics, and then we're going to talk about the rod and reel, and then we're going to talk about how to fish it. All right, the great thing about a swinging rugby, no matter which style you pick, swinging jig, EWG, straight shank, you can fish any plastic on this jig head style. But here are my favorites, without a doubt, okay? You already heard the first one. I think this is probably the most versatile out of the bunch. I catch a lot of bass with this style plastic on a swing jig head, and it's the Berkley Pit Boss. And if you look at the Pit Boss, it's a cross between a crawl and a beaver style bait. And again, ready? Left, right, because of the articulation, up and down with that Chigger Pit Boss movement. And if you fished a Pit Boss, you know what I'm talking about. So I love this. When those fish are feeding on a bluegill or crawfish or gobies, What a great bait. I'm just picking the color that matches the 4-inch, but the 4-inch, phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal on a swinging jig head. All right, the next one, guys, straight up worm. Whether it's a straight tail worm or in this case a ribbon tail. This is a 10-inch Berkley power worm. Love, love, love the swinging jig. I'll show you real quick, you know, how I'm going to rig it. And we're going to do it just like a traditional Texas rig. I'm going to go in the bait, about 1/8 of an inch, pop it out. I'm going to swing it all the way around the bend of that EWG. Excuse me. And then I'm going to go in the body, out a couple times, and I just want to make sure that worm's nice and straight. So that's going to give that worm, a 10-inch power worm, left, right movement. Very special for the articulated jig head. And then that ribbon tail is going to be doing that crazy, kinky motion that big ribbon tail does. Okay, so pit boss, big worm. Okay, number 3, creature bait. Love, 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 love a creature bait, especially those bigger 5- and 6-inch creature baits. This is a bait by Berkley, power bait. It's called a power hog. It's 5-inch. I love it. I want to take that creature bait. I'm going to let loose all those appendages. I want all that action. And this is a really good one when they want a bigger profile. Now, when those fish are feeding on big bluegill, big tilapia, there's big crawfish. If you've got crawfish in your fishery and they look like freaking little lobsters, this is a good one. And again, remember, right? Side to side movement plus the action of the tail. Dual action. All right, last but not least, and guys, this one is the sleeper of the bunch. And I really love to throw this when they're keyed in on bait fish. And I love to throw this when they're in more open water, sparse cover situations, is swim bait. Guys, a swim bait on a swinging jig head, on an articulated head, is unbelievable. And I like the bigger swim baits, 3/8, 4/3, 4/8, great size. This is the Berkley Power Bait Power Swimmer, 4/3. And here's what I do when that cover is sparse to open water with that swim bait. You ready? Guys, I thread it on. Remember, the VMC rugby head, one of the hook styles you can get is that straight shank. And I will straight up thread it on there. And it gives that swim bait a totally different action than guys fishing it on a ball head or guys fishing it on a swim bait head. Instead of just having the boot tail going like this, now the boot tail is going like this and the whole bait is rocking side to side, okay? So when it comes to what meat to put on there, sky's the limit. Put on whatever plastic you want, but those are my 4 favorites, okay? Talk about weight of the jig head, and then I'm going to get to the rod and reel. Weight of the jig head, if you look at my box, I got a whole box of swinging jigs here. I like to carry from a 1/4 ounce up, all the way up to those big mamas, a 3/4 ounce, okay? So 1/4 ounce to 3/4 ounce, without a doubt, that half ounce size is probably my favorite, right? Here's the half ounce. Just lets me do a lot. But the main thing on picking weight of your swinging jig head, and you're going to see this in a second when I talk about how to retrieve it, is you have to maintain bottom contact. Very, 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 very critical, guys, to maintain bottom contact. So pick the weight that stays on the bottom. So deeper water, heavier weight. Shallower water, lighter weight. Calmer day, lighter weight. Windier day, heavier weight. Light current, lighter weight, heavy current, heavier weight, so on and so forth, okay? Pick the weight that maintains bottom contact. Okay, rod and reel, real quick, and then we're gonna talk about the two techniques, how I fish this bait. You wanna fish that swinging jig, that swing head, on the same exact rod you fish your jigs, your skirted jigs, okay? So whatever rod you use to fish your football jigs, your flipping jigs, same exact rod. Guys, 7 foot to 7'4", medium heavy is the right category, okay? This one is my favorite, and it's a rod that I designed for jig fishing. It's the 7'2" medium heavy action Abu Garcia Ike series rod. 7'2" medium heavy, perfect rod. Because we want a rod for that swing head. We still got to jam the hook home. Think about it. Guys, that's a heavy duty hook. Okay, so we still have to get into them. But I want a little bit of tip. These rods are like 80-20 rods. 20% of the rod is tip. 80% is backbone. That's the correct action. 7 to 7'4", medium heavy. And reel, here's the only thing. Ready? Low profile, fast gear ratio reel. That's it. Use a reel that has a 7:1 ratio or higher. MGX Extreme, Xenon, 8:1 is great. 8:3 is great. Any of those, perfect reel, because sometimes we have to pick up the slack and hit them, okay? All right, line. Line, line, line. Here it goes, guys. You ready? 90% of the time, when I'm fishing a swinging jig, articulated jig, I'm fishing it on straight fluorocarbon. Casting rod with that 12 to 20 pound fluorocarbon. I'm using Berkley Trilene 100%, 15 sparser cover, 17 more moderate cover, 20 heavy cover, 12 open water. Okay, real good rule of thumb. 90% of the time, straight fluorocarbon. 10% of the time, every once in a while, when I'm dragging this through the nasty, nasty cover, flooded timber, brush piles everywhere, littered on the bottom, I'll go to braid to a short fluorocarbon leader. And I'm usually using 30 or 40 pound braid to about a 2 foot fluorocarbon leader of 15, 17, or 20 pound tests, okay? Most of the time, fish on straight fluoro, guys. The bait's gonna have more action. Fluorocarbon sinks, it's dense. That means more action, okay? All right, let's get to it. There's 2 retrieves that I'm gonna do with this swinging head. One, I'm gonna use a lot. It's my main technique. The other one, it's more specialized for when the water gets a little colder or when the water gets a little dirtier. But let's talk about my #1 retrieve with this, and it's called grinding the swing head, grinding it. And the retrieve and the technique is exactly what that word sounds like. You want to grind this along the bottom. Remember, we're not swimming this through the middle of the water column. We're not fishing it like a topwater. This bait, the swinging jig, is best, at its best, when it's on the bottom, that head's grinding, and that bait's gone left to right, and then whatever that other action is, the plastic. It's at its best when it's grinding along the bottom. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make that long cast, I'm gonna bomb it out there toward whatever you're fishing. Main lake point, secondary point, channel swing, deep flat, gravel patch, whatever you're fishing. And I'm gonna let it get to the bottom. I like to let it fall on a semi-slack line, so I watch it as it falls. Every once in a while, one will eat on the fall, but boom, the line bellows out. Once that bait hit the bottom, you ready? All we're gonna do is we're just gonna reel it. We're gonna reel it slow to medium, medium slow. Every 10 cranks, we're gonna pause it, let it go back down, let it maintain bottom contact, and then we're gonna start that slow to medium, medium slow retrieve. Pause. And that bait is going to do the work for you. You don't need to do a thing because that bait's going to hit the bottom, it's going to grind, it's going to crunch, it's going to go over limbs, it's going to hit the boulder, go over the boulder, fall as it's falling, it's going left and right. Make sure that as you're doing that medium slow retrieve, every 10 or 12 cranks, throw a pause in, because sometimes it wants to lift. When you throw a pause in, boom, it hits the bottom again and it starts grinding. The number one way I'm going to fish swinging jig head is grinding it on the bottom. The number two method, and you heard me say it, is when that water gets colder or when the water gets dirtier, I want to slow that grinding, swimming motion down. And the way that I do that is I drag a swinging jig head. So retrieve number two is the same, but it's different. In this retrieve, I'm making a long cast past what I'm fishing, main lake point, high spot, shell bar, 10 to 15, 20 foot, whatever it is. Follow my line down, boom, hits the bottom, line bellowed out. But this time, instead of that steady medium slow, medium retrieve with pauses, this time, I'm going to drag it. And listen to me, if you're watching this and you fish a Carolina rig, it is exactly like you'd fish a Carolina rig. I'm going to take my rod from, what are we at here, about 3 o'clock. I'm going to drag it up and to the side, and I'm going to get up to 12. When I hit 12, I'm going to let it fall back down and follow the line down, and boom, line bellows out. Wait a second or two, drag it from 3 to 12. In this dragging technique, it's the same exact thing as grinding, but it slows everything down. So late fall, early winter, super hot summertime conditions, lethargic fish, heavy fishing pressure, or when you're fishing a place that's dirty, less than a foot of visibility, I like that dragging technique better because it slows it down, it slows that banging and grinding down, and lets the fish find it, okay? Two techniques that are great, grinding, dragging, unique action. Number one thing about the swinging jig, guys, is that left to right articulated movement in addition to the movement of the bait. Man, let me tell you, swinging jig heads, the articulated jig, the biffle bug, it hasn't gone away. It's as good as it is today as it was 5 or 10 years ago. So great technique, late summer, midsummer, all year round really. Great technique because of the action. I hope you enjoyed this video talking about the swinging jigs, the articulated jig heads. Give it a try. It really has unique action and in certain situations can get you a lot of bites. I hope you're really enjoying these videos. If you are, halt right there, hit the subscribe button because when you subscribe, we're going to send you notifications, ding, new video every single week. You won't miss a single one. If you're already a subscriber, tell your fishing friends about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're here to hopefully help you become a better angler. Give it a try. Swinging jig head. It works. Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli. I hope you enjoyed this week's In the Shop. I hope you learned a little bit. And if you like these videos, remember, there's a whole boatload. Check out these two, and you're going to learn more about bass fishing.